All right, he hasn't been on the CJ Silas show. I can't believe since he's been the coach of the Cougs, I haven't talked to him. So the last time I talked to Pac-12 co-coach of the year, Mike Leach, was when he was at Texas Tech. So we're sure glad to have you back in a town you spent a year in San Luis Obispo. Welcome back, Coach. Congratulations on so many different things. It's been a while.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it. San Luis Obispo is one of the most beautiful places in the world, and always enjoyed being there. And I used to, of course, like everybody, go get barbecue ribs and stuff like that on Thursday.
At the farmer's market. And a lot of people don't know you started your career here. Whenever I talk about Washington State, or even before that, when I used to talk about you at Texas Tech, I would say, in 1987, that guy made a lot of money as the offensive line coach at Cal Poly.
Yeah, I made $3,000 for the year. But it was an incredible place to live. I really enjoyed it. I had a really old Cadillac. I mean, old, and because that's all I could afford, and which I bought in Alabama as I was working on my master's degree. I go by this car lot, and I have a Nissan Sentra that had been in 2 accidents, which was newer, and I needed to buy a car, and so I got this '79 Cadillac, and so I loaded that whole thing up from top to bottom trunk, and then also my first daughter, and we drove to San Luis Obispo and coached with Lyle Sitch, and then I worked with Bill McDermott, who was the offensive line coach, and had a great time.
Do you still have the Cadillac? Because that would be really cool. It would be a classic for sure now.
No, I wish I did. It started rusting, and it was, it didn't. It started rusting the bottom of it, and then the transmission started to go. Which the transmission didn't go early or anything like that. There were an insane amount of miles on that vehicle, but when I got it, it was in South Alabama around Mobile, which is very humid and salt air and all that, and then I sold it when I worked at Valdosta State in Georgia to a guy.
Wow. Memories, for sure. He was the 2008 Coach of the Year at Texas Tech. He had the biggest comeback in NCAA history in 2006, and he's now the co-coach of the year in the Pac-12, head coach of the Washington State Cougs, Mike Leach, on the CJ Silas show. Here you are, co-coach of the year with David Shaw. That's a huge honor. Everybody talks about you. You're settling in now into the Pac-12. What's changed for you leaving the Southeast and ending up now in the western part of the U.S.?
There hasn't been a lot of change, really. I mean, Washington State was way down, and then we went to a bowl game, which was a pretty good accomplishment. I was proud of our guys for doing that because Washington State hadn't been to a bowl in 12 years, and but I think the biggest thing is we were in a huge hole here, in particular with linemen, offensive linemen and defensive linemen. We were able to rebuild the D-line quicker. Offensive line, just number-wise, we didn't have hardly any. We had like 6 offensive linemen on scholarship, and about 3 of them belonged on scholarship. And we were light and not particular. We were weighed about 260 pounds, which is very small. And it wasn't, this guy only weighs 260, but he's really tough. I mean, no, we weighed 260 and weren't terribly tough and weren't very big at all. And so we've gotten bigger there. And then the other thing I think is when you get a group of guys and you start to put together some off seasons, that really helps bring you together. But we're a real young team. We're still, like this year, a team of predominantly sophomores and freshmen.
How is it different when you're recruiting in Texas than when you're recruiting in Washington? Is there much?
Not where we were in Texas. Where we were in Texas, and here's what they have in common. Both great places, but almost nobody's been there. Nobody's driven through there, so they don't have a visual. Both Pullman and Lubbock have that in common. Even within the state of Texas, in Lubbock, a lot of people were going to fly in, and same way with Pullman. But one thing with with Pullman where we're at now, because the airport a lot of times you fly into, now you can fly directly into Pullman, but the airport that you'd fly into a lot is Spokane, which is like an hour and 15 minutes away. And the good thing about that is there's direct flights from the Bay Area, there's direct flights from LA, there's direct flight from San Diego, there's direct flight from Las Vegas, Phoenix, Denver, Salt Lake. And so it is pretty wired in as far as direct flights. And so, you know, what we always remind everybody, if you're in LA, once you're on the plane, you're about 3.5 hours away, which, you know, you can't drive from LA to Palm Springs in 3 hours. So we're that close, you know.
He's Mike Leach. His Washington State Cougars are playing in December in a bowl game versus Miami in El Paso, Texas in the Sun Bowl. He's on the CJ Silas Show. When you left Texas Tech, you then went to CBS Sports, and then before going back to coaching in college, there were so many teams that wanted you. Colleges, Maryland wanted you, Minnesota, Miami, Arizona, Ole Miss, Penn State. A lot of schools talked to you. Why Washington State?
Well, I think Bill Moose, our athletic director, was a big part of that. I wanted to go to a place that was undervalued, you know, that could be good, you know, that just wasn't firing on all cylinders. And then, but there had to be a commitment by the school to, you know, to change, and they had to be in it with me to improve. And, you know, Bill Moose was the athletic director who had been at Oregon. He'd been at Oregon for 14 years, got to deal with Nike, upgraded all their facilities, and then Washington State was his alma mater. So when he came back as an athletic director, he was there at Washington State. And so, you know, he had the whole vision of we're going to elevate it, and he wanted to do the things at Washington State he did at Oregon. And you know, they had the plans to build all the facilities. We went from the worst facilities, maybe the worst in America. We were scattered all over an old building, and, you know, we didn't even have our own meeting rooms or anything like that. And in the last year, we moved into the best facilities in the Pac-12, among the best in the country, definitely the best in the Pac-12. And so, you know, I believed his vision. I could see it. Also, I wanted a college town, and because there's something special about being in a college town where everybody's doing the same things, all for one for all type of thing, where you're not saturated by a city and commuting in and having the student body scattered within, you know, a bunch of people that aren't involved with the university. And the other thing that makes it unique is, you know, in the Pac-12, which is a great conference with a lot of variety to the locations and things like that, but it's an urban conference. I mean, every place is an urban school except for us in Oregon State. So I thought that distinction was exciting too. And as I look back when I went to college, I think about, you know, it's all my fellow students that I have memories with, you know, the people I went to school with, and, you know, those are all the things I remember, not really the, you know, the people in the community and the outside, because it's what you did together and that whole solidarity that exists going to school together.
He's not just a college football coach. He's an author. Mike Leach has written 2 books, Swing Your Sword and Geronimo, Leadership Strategies of an American Warrior, but he's probably one of the most educated college football coaches we have in the United States. He's also one of the only 4 coaches in college football who didn't play football, and I feel honored enough to have him here on the CJ Silas Show. My next guest, Coach Leach, is a leadership coach at IMG in Bradenton, Florida. It's the boarding school for athletes, and he's waving me down while you're talking. He's saying, I love that guy. Can I come in and ask him a question? So if you don't mind, James Leith, who's a sports psychology consultant here in San Luis Obispo, but only for a week, because as he's moving on to Bradenton, Florida, he wanted to come in and say hi and ask you a question. And you don't get to meet one of your heroes very often, so I thought you wouldn't mind if I let James ask you a question.
Yeah, I was with IMG. I mean, I was represented by IMG.
Coach, I heard that you were going to be on this interview, and I went back and I read Swing Your Sword, and then I'm hearing you talk about your journey to Washington. And I see a lot of correlations between John Wooden when he went to UCLA Did that influence your decision to want to go over there, seeing that the program was kind of down, and you said, okay, I'm going to go and try to bring it up?
I'm a big fan of John Wooden, and I got the chance to meet him, and just a very alert, brilliant guy, and who was incidentally represented by IMG, and he and I had the same agent, Gary O'Hagan, and so I went. I got to see him in his apartment in Encino, and it was an excellent deal. But a little bit. I mean, because there's a book, a John Wooden book. It's a blue book with gold letters and big letters on it that says Wooden, which I've read that a number of times. The co-author Steve Jameson, for anybody that wants to get it, which it's kind of just sort of frames out his philosophy, his thoughts on life, his approach to problems, that type of thing. And I've read it a bunch of times. I used to read it each year before the season started. So I've followed it a bunch. I guess I try to follow, just his approach kind of mentally and have my teams, because Wooden would talk about make each day your masterpiece, your best is always enough, stuff like that. So you just kind of, and focus on it each day, each play type of thing. So I guess I've tried to have it influence things. I don't know if it did, but I've read it and been conscious of Coach Wooden.
Yeah, well, your influence keeps going because from your book, I learned things like technique is more important than scheme. You had a very small playbook, and you educated your athletes, and it was more important for them to understand what you were doing than just memorizing a playbook. And there was one thing that I really grabbed from it was you're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. And as I coach, I see it on game day, and I think, okay, I remember seeing that at practice. And then when I was reading your book last night, I was like, that's where I got it from. So you're passing on all the stuff that you've learned. So
that's so cool.
I want to say thank you.
That's a nice compliment,
that
Coach.
That was a fun book to do. I did it with Bruce Feldman, and but it was really well received, and they're still selling it. They're actually Amazon's going to feature it this month. They feature certain books, and that's one of them they're going to feature. I think the week of the 17th, or maybe it's the 10th through the 17th.
That's pretty cool. It's a great holiday gift. Just go look for it.
That's right.
I know I'm keeping you longer than I probably should have. Ethically in radio, we're only supposed to keep you 10 minutes, but I want to ask you one quick question before I let you go. Concussions are really prevalent right now. The conversation is everywhere. None of us in our line of work, whether it's coaching or radio, know the psychological and physiological components of it. But as a coach, if parents are asking you about it, if parents want to talk to you about it in your recruiting process, how are you handling that? It seems like it would be difficult.
Well, the biggest thing is you just make sure that you have the state-of-the-art equipment. I think that's the most important. And then, we have doctors all over the place that monitor it all the time. And Washington State's got one of the strictest concussion protocols, and which there's a whole program that a guy goes through before he can get back on the field, and it's a variety of tests and things, and then that they measure it the best they can and make sure that they're symptom free. So really, it's the protocol. I also think that we can improve on those things as far as both treatment and equipment. I mean, with the technology and knowledge that we have, and then also, you try to use the best techniques that are going to keep the head out of the play. And, partially for safety, but also because, that's also the best technique to get the job done.
Listen, on a personal note, Coach Leach, I've been doing this a long time, being a woman in the sports industry over 25 years. I've definitely dealt with some adversity. I've lost jobs, I've lost partners, all of that. And when I'm going throughout my experience as a woman on the radio and doing sports, I use guys like Jackie Robinson as my heroes, guys that I look up to that went through worse than me, guys like John Wooden and the things that he can do to influence me. And when I've met him, and I was lucky enough to interview him before he passed, guys like Rick Neuheisel that have turned adversity in his life into a wonderful career right now in television. Guys like you go through adversity and you've been through it, and every single time something happens, you come out with your head held high, and you are somebody that I look to when it comes to things like that. And I know there are other people out in the world, and I want to thank you for that in front of people, because we do this all the time, and we spend so much of our conversations on the plays and on the field and the players, but really as a man, as a coach, as a human being, you really are a good model for a lot of us that don't have it easy all the time. So thank you so much for being who you are and continuing to persevere. And the fact that you start at Cal Poly means you're going to take my call from till I die, and I love that.
Oh, I appreciate you having me on. No, it's really an honor to be on, and just like you say, it's especially in radio. I mean, there's not too many women out there, so and there's no question you have to claw your way through some adversity to get there, and I know that.
Well, I appreciate it. We wish you the best of luck against Miami, and I think probably helping me is that I play roller derby, so I get to get on my skates and beat the crap out of girls once in a while to get out my aggression. That sure helps.
Well, I'll have to come see that sometime.
Right? Okay, we'll get you back to San Luis Obispo, not only to come visit Cal Poly, where you got your start, but also to come watch Cal Skate roller derby.
That'd be awesome.
All right, Coach.
I didn't know they had it. If they did, I would have gone to it.
Yeah. Well, we didn't then. When you were here, there was no derby. But there's derby in Pullman, too, just so you know, and Spokane.
Really?
Yeah, I'll send you a note, and I'll give you some of the team names so you can look them up.
All righty.
All right, Coach, thank you so much. I always appreciate it. Happy holidays, and we hope to see you back in California sometime, maybe even just on vacation.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to go back there.
All right, take care, Coach.
Hey, thanks, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Head coach Mike Leach, Washington State, December 26th, taking on Miami and the co-coach of the year in the Pac-12.